So, good morning, Tanya. Thank you so much for being here on the podcast Blue Glasses Math. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. And let's just start by asking you to introduce yourself to the listeners and what role do you play in math ed and maybe a little bit of your background.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya. I am a PhD in math education from Stanford University and the CEO of Struggly. Struggly is, well, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but it's an online math program about supporting students to embrace struggle as part of the learning process in math. A little bit about my background. I'm a first generation college student, and it wasn't until college that I actually started to see math as being about logic and reasoning and justification. Before that, math was really about memorizing and reproducing and just understanding the first time. And if you couldn't do that, then to me, that meant you just weren't a math person. Um, I have one of my favorite things to share is so I did end up majoring in math, but it took me three tries to get to that point. So I started in AP Calc in high school and dropped it. I was placed in some sort of accelerated version where your trigonometry got squished into one semester. And we got into the calc part, and I was just not ready for it. And just my foundation just felt so shaky. So I opted out. Then in college, I was sure I was going to be a business major. And so I did all of the business classes, including business calc. Um, Side note, business calc doesn't have any trigonometry in it.
Ah, didn't know
So
that.
I got through business calc and I felt really confident because I was able to, succeed in a calculus class. And so I thought maybe I'll give a math major, a try. So I enrolled in calculus. And again, I was not ready for it. I didn't have any of the trig. So I actually started my math degree at pre-calc, which is pretty unique. Most math majors are not me, are not, don't have a story like that. And so I started at pre-calc, but it ended up being the best thing for me because I got a really solid foundation in pre-calc. And then it made, the calculus series and the rest of my pure math degree. It just set me up for success because I had a real conceptual understanding of those fundamentals that calculus builds on. So I was really grateful to have had that experience, even if it felt very roundabout. At the same time, I was falling in love with math, and the way that math made me feel, because when you can, look at a really challenging math problem and come up with ideas and strategies for trying and solving and working through, and it makes sense, and you come to a solution, and it's connected to other things you learned in the past. It just is this empowering, incredible feeling. And it made me feel so smart, which smart is such a loaded word, but it was the first time that I really felt intelligent. And I was really frustrated by the fact that I didn't get that feeling until college. So at the same time, I was tutoring in two programs. One was the student athlete program, and also in a program for other first generation college students. And it surprised me that the students in the first generation college program were majority enrolled in pre-baccalaureate math classes, which means that they were taking math classes that didn't count for college credit. And if they didn't pass those classes, they would get kicked out.
Mm.
Um, and to me, that was really frustrating because I was first generation too. And it's, we're all told that we were ready for college. And then, my peers were in college, but were not able to take college level math classes. And so it felt like such a stark difference in experiences that I was finally getting this really beautiful math experience. And then I was supporting my peers who were, not getting that. And then also, I noticed a theme of a lot of the students that I was supporting seeing math as being memorizing and reproducing like I had seen it. And so I set out, this kind of inspired the rest of my career over the last 15 years to support as many students as possible to see math as the beautiful, creative, connected subject that it is, and to support as many students as possible to see themselves as math people and math capable. And so I went to get a master's and a credential at Stanford. And that's how I first met Dr. Joe Bowler, who is just an incredible person all around. um, so I got a credential, and then I went and I taught in LA Unified for 5 years at a high school called Augustus Hawkins. And it was one big high school that had three small themed schools on the campus. And I taught at the Critical Design and Gaming School. So we
Sounds
were
so
themed
cool.
around design and gaming. It was
So
really
cool.
um, and I had a number of experiences throughout the my time as a classroom teacher that motivated me to want to go and get a PhD in math education. Part of it was just really wanting to be able to have a seat at the table where decisions were being made that were impacting my students, or to be able to support teachers to teach in a way that would empower more students. I thought maybe I could be a teacher educator, or a professor. And so I went back to Stanford, was lucky enough to get accepted to work with Joe again. And that was probably the most transformational experience of my life so far. Other than like falling in love with math, the second most important thing was learning from Joe at Stanford. Just the way that she thinks about math education, not only in the research space, but in the teacher education space, um, in the design of content. It was just a really incredible experience. And so I thought that I was going to go become a professor, but I realized that the difference, the separation between research and practice was something that was really starting to eat away at me. I knew that to become a successful professor, I was going to need to publish or perish. And so I really enjoy research, but research can feel disconnected from having an impact in classrooms. I think Joe is one of the, leaders in really making sure that she connects her research to practice and really gets research into the hands of teachers in a way that's useful. But I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to have that same level of impact, because she's just such a superstar. And it's like, can I really be another superstar in that way?
They broke the
Um,
mold. They broke the mold when they made Joe Bowler, right?
Exactly. Um, and so it started to seem like maybe something else was going to be a better fit for me. And Joe and Alina had started Struggly. And so once I graduated, I asked to be a part of it. And so I became the CEO of Struggly. And now we are in existence in at least one user in all 50 states.
Awesome.
And then also we're in 28 countries, at least one user
Wow.
in 28 countries. And we're in the middle of our first real full year of existence, like school year. We
Uh-huh.
had a prototype in classrooms last year, but we're pretty new. And I'm really excited about the changes that I know that Struggly is having, or supporting in classrooms in terms of supporting students to understand what it really takes to learn math, to see math for what it is, but also understand what it takes to learn math, that it's not about just being a math person, that math is, it takes struggling. It takes making mistakes and learning from them and trying out different ideas. Going down a pathway and realizing you need to U-turn and go back and try something else. That none of that is a red flag that you're not a math person. That's actually exactly what you should be doing when you're learning math. I think Struggly's having that impact of showing kids that that's really what it takes. And so you can be a math person because you're doing what mathematicians do.
Oh, okay. So there's so much for me to unpack right there because I was like, I so badly wanted to like jump in as you were talking, but like your why, I don't know if, are you familiar with Simon Sinek?
Yes.
Okay. So he talks about people don't care what you do, they care why you do it. Right. So it is so crystal clear of why you're doing this work. And I'm so impressed by your like tenacity to just be like going after it, and like the twists and turns in your math experience over the years has led you to this point. And I think it's amazing that now you're sitting in the seat of the CEO of this app that has the potential to really shift somebody's perspective on what math really is. Like you said, when you take that U-turn, that's exactly what you should be doing. And it's not, doesn't mean you're a failure. I work with students also after school sometimes, and I have this one particular student who just, every time she gets stuck, she's like, oh, she so badly doesn't want to give up. And I'm like, because you shouldn't, because that means you're on your way. It's just, you just have to, it's a different navigation than what you expected. And I think the messaging that she's getting when she works with me might be slightly different than what she's hearing when she's in school. About, in school, it's, the teacher says, you need you to do it this way. And this, and we're still, and I'm thinking like, when did Jo publish her first book? I mean, it's been years, right? And I've been,
Years, maybe.
yeah, exactly. And this whole math education space that I'm in, and that you're in too, is like hearing people talk about what, like, or Dan Meyer is another one that comes to my mind, right? Math class needs makeover. It's like, okay, that was 2011 when he gave that talk, and now it's 2024. Like, let's go. So I'm so glad that this app is here to help us move us along the way. Yeah, so Struggly. So it's spelled Struggly. Such a cute name. I love that you just like that the name is just like, this is what it is. It's Struggly. It's about struggling for struggling's sake. And for, yeah. But maybe I think this would be a great time for you to, would you be able to share your screen? And
Sure.
for the listeners who are listening to this in audio, we'll have this up on YouTube as soon as possible so that you can also take a look. But yeah, so Tanya's gonna share her screen, and oh, this looks so cute because I did some of the like the trial ones, or not the trial, but the ones that are on the website. Just like I did like the 4 fours problem, I think is what I put up.
Oh,
But
yeah.
this looks great. Okay, so I'll stop talking so you can share. Tell me about this app.
Okay. Well, I guess the first thing is we're technically not an app.
Oh,
Um, we're 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 entirely web-based. So
love it.
I mean, it's a web application. You could say app, but I just want to clarify, you don't have to download it in the App Store or anything like that. We work great on Chromebooks because we're entirely web-based.
Great.
Um, to tell you a little bit more about the name, so we're called Struggly. Um, it definitely catches the attention, right, of teachers when you see a program called Struggly. But it definitely takes like a second to explain to students of like, I'm not asking you to come and play Struggly because I think that you're a struggler. It's because
Mm.
Struggly is all about embracing struggle as an integral and exciting part of the learning process. And we've got that embedded in the design of our tasks, but also in the messaging that students experience as they play through Struggly. So we've got growth mindset woven, messages woven throughout the student experience. What we're looking at right now is actually the teacher dashboard. So these are the measures that the teacher gets about their class: persistence, creativity, and strategy. Those are the associated with the badges that students are earning as they play through Struggly tasks. Over here, we've got the big ideas that all Struggly tasks are associated with. So this is a brand new classroom. I've only played, I think, one task here because all the students in this classroom are me. Uh, so all Struggly tasks are associated with at least one of these 3 big ideas. If anyone's not familiar with the big idea approach to math learning, it comes from Jo and Kathy Williams. And it's basically, instead of thinking about math classes as a series of, siloed learning targets that are disassociated from one another, can we instead take all of the ideas in our course and map them to sort of an umbrella topic, which would be a big
Mm.
idea? Um, and so the mathematical mindset curriculum books all center around big ideas. So in Struggly, we use that same approach, and we've mapped to just 3 big ideas, which are number sense, patterns, and shape and space. Number sense is exactly what you would think it is. Number flexibility, number composition, things like that. Patterns is our prelude into algebraic thinking. So pattern recognition, pattern extension, pattern defining. And then shape and space is our prelude into geometric thinking, working with things like area models. We can't ask students to embrace struggle without also, walking the walk of growth mindset. There's some research out there talking about, oh, growth mindset doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work if you just tell students to have a growth mindset and then do nothing more.
Yeah.
Your practice needs to also be associated, or it needs to walk the walk of the messaging that you're given. So you'll notice that in Struggly, when students make mistakes, they're celebrated. Like, great, you made a mistake. That means this is a challenge. Your brain is growing. Let's get back into it and keep trying. So
this is
over
amazing.
here,
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
yes.
Okay, so if you go back to that previous screen, I just want to highlight something because this to me is amazing, right? The statistics that a teacher is looking at on this teacher screen are not like, I don't know, I'm going to use the word standards based, or it's not like number of operations base 10, B2, 5, or whatever. It's
Right.
persistence, creativity, strategy,
Right.
and completion, because of course we want students to complete, but I just think that's really important to highlight. So okay, so sorry.
Definitely. Well, and I'm glad you said that because it actually brings up one of the things that makes us really different. Because yes, we are a digital product, but we're not like any of the other digital products. And that is because we're not meant as we're not an assessment tool. We're not measuring students on whether or not they're getting right answers. When I was in the classroom, I told you I taught at a school that was themed around design and gaming. And I was really frustrated by the fact that all of the gamified math products that were available to me were really just students playing a game and earning points students doing practice problems to earn points to play a game that had nothing to do with math.
Oh,
The math that you're doing,
yes.
the game
Yep.
that you're playing are different. They're not even connected. And
No.
so then the mathematics becomes an unwanted interruption to the game that you're playing.
Oh my gosh,
So,
it's amazing. I love the way you said that because I've
so
seen that.
frustrating.
Yep.
So you'll notice that in Struggly, the game that students are playing and the math that they're learning are one and the same. We are very adamant about making sure those things are connected. So Struggly is really not meant as an assessment tool. It's meant as a tool to promote students' conceptual understanding, their connection making, but we're still connected to that fundamental math content. So all of our tasks are tagged with standards. But it's just we're not using our task to measure that standard. We're using
Right.
our task to get students engaged in the conceptual understanding and sense making around that content. And I think the power of Struggly would actually be taken away if we were using it to measure students right and wrong,
Yeah, I
right?
agree.
The freedom that a student feels when they're playing a Struggly task is what makes it so powerful. So let me show you one of my favorites. So our tasks are searchable by content.
I love it.
I'm gonna, ooh,
Yep.
mine
And
went
for
past that.
the while we're looking for the task, I just want to point out to the listeners who are not seeing this on video that there is, for each task, it will have the name of the task, and then it also in there includes the Common Core standard. So it will have the 1.0A, the 1. NBT. And I only stop and say this because when I would go into teachers, and when I still go into teachers, but it's gotten better over the years, is I would say to the teachers the day before or the week before I was coming into the classroom, tell me what you're working on. And sometimes I would get teachers telling me, I'm on 5.2. And I'm like, what does 5.2 mean? They're like, well, 5.2 in the book. And so I'd say, well, what standards are you working on? And then I would kind of get a little closer to, well, 5 NBT 5 or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, but what does that actually mean? Right? So the point is, yes, we're still seeing the standards here. It's just that's not the only focus. And the only focus is not just, like you said, I don't know if you said this now or before we started recording, but it's not about just checking off the boxes of every chapter as we go or every section of every chapter. It's about the big ideas. Okay.
Exactly. So I'm trying to think of what would be the best one to show you to start. I think Hall of Mirrors is pretty interesting. So we'll start there.
Okay. And this task is accessible to students from second grade, it looks like, all the way up through fifth grade.
Yes. So
Or,
our tasks, well, I'll show it so that we can get started.
okay.
But this teacher is not at level one.
This
Hmm.
teacher being you.
This teacher being me, yes. Um, I can log in as a student at the same time. So let me assign this task to my class.
Okay.
And I'm going to sign in as a student at the same time.
And the interface looks super simple. It's like
Uh,
user experience looks really good,
so
I
one
think.
of our other co-founder, in addition to Joe, is a woman named Alina Schleyer,
Mm-hmm.
and she is actually a award-winning German designer.
Ah,
So, and her specialty is in creating digital experiences.
got it.
So, the reason why Struggly is the way that it is visually, and then also in terms of how engaging the tasks are, is definitely due in part to Alina and her expertise as a designer.
Love
Okay,
it.
so let's sign in as a student, and I'm gonna still be a teacher over here. Sorry,
Oh,
I didn't.
nice. No, it's
Oh,
good. So I'm seeing two. So we're seeing two screens here. So we have the teacher on one side and the student on the other side, so we can kind of see what's happening on both ends. I love this. This is exciting. This is good.
and I'm wondering if I know what the student's password is. So let me double check. Okay, we'll be Casey.
Okay. And just like with a lot of these web-based platforms or web-based programs, you can see all the students' passwords if they forget it, because we know that happens a lot.
That's happened. You can edit them and all of that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so over here on the right-hand side is Casey's dashboard. The teacher has assigned Hall of Mirrors, and so that is what she's being offered to play when she first logs in. So this is an example of what I mean by low floor, high ceiling.
Okay.
The tasks have no instructions, and that's
Hmm.
on purpose and also based in research. We want students to know that in math, they're supposed to be in the driver's seat. They're supposed to be the ones trying out ideas and sense making. It's not about being told what to do, it's about thinking for yourself. So, in Struggly tasks, uh, sometimes the teacher has to say, it's called Struggly. You're meant to go in and figure it out and struggle. And so the students eventually will start to play around here with the slider. And I'm going to just unlock these three values. And I'm learning how the slider works.
Okay, so the slider, as Tanya moves it over, is like making different polygons, and on the vertices of each polygon, there's a giant dot, which I love the playfulness of this. It's so pretty. It's like fun, but it's also simple. Like there's not a lot of like little demons in the background or like creatures
Right.
floating around. It's literally just the math.
The focus is the math, right? So
Mm,
now we're on
mhm.
to level 2, and now we're really into the content. So this is about generating visual representations of products or visual numbers. So for example, I'm going to focus on 12 because it's such a nice multidimensional number. 12 can be thought of as 3 times 4, and I'm going to visualize it.
What? That's like so playful and fun.
So I pulled the first slider to make a triangle of 3 dots. Then I pulled the second slider to make each of the vertices of the triangle became populated with a group of 4 dots. So now I'm showing that 12 can be thought of as 3 groups of 4.
Yeah.
But 12 could also be thought of as 6 groups of 2.
Oh
And
my
I've got a
gosh.
different visual now.
This is amazing.
I could also think of it, I can click on it and see all the products I've made. 3 times 4,
Ah, yeah, I was
six
going to
times.
ask that. Is there like a way you can keep a record of what you've been doing here?
Yes. So I made 12 in these different ways. And that I can go through and make all the other products
Yeah,
across the
yeah,
bottom here.
yeah.
Once I complete those products, I'm going to get a third slider unlocked. And so we'll be working with 3 factors and a new set of products. And eventually this task completes with, or the final level of this task has 4 sliders. So you're working with 4 factors and finding the goal products across the bottom here. The most exciting part, I would say, about this task, and I'm going to show it from the teacher side, is that when you're playing this task, you're actually creating your own visual card deck.
Oh my gosh. I've seen similar cards to this, but this is like next level. So wait, sorry.
So all the visuals that the student has created. So like when I made 12 a couple different times, all of those different visuals are saved here in the deck. And I'm going to be creating a deck up to 100. The deck itself is printable. So then students could be, playing, they could print out their deck and then play a game against one another, knowing that each student's card deck is going to be unique because there's so many different ways to visualize all of these products.
I can, sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
can even see a connection to like prime numbers, right? And like why do the prime numbers, they're all, it look like they're most of them are circles or something, or there was only
I
one
love that you
way.
just said that. So we're in the teacher dashboard over here on the left side. I got Casey's window back there, but if I, from the teacher dashboard, I'm on the page for Hall of Mirrors. I can see Casey is active in Hall of Mirrors. The rest of my students are inactive. I see the badges that are embedded within this task. You can click on it to see how the student earns the badge. But what I think is the most exciting part of the teacher dashboard, and maybe Struggly in general, okay, the most exciting part of Struggly are our tasks, but the second most exciting part of Struggly are the reflect and reason questions that are written for each task. So these are questions that are meant to be posed to the students to deepen their conceptual understanding, to push them to make connections, but they also can be used as a formative assessment. So I know I was talking about that Struggly is not an assessment tool, and I should clarify, it's not a summative assessment
Yeah.
tool. It can very much be used as a formative assessment tool. And what I mean by formative assessment is um, a format of assessment where you're using it to gain information, to inform you about what your students understand, what your students know, what resonates with them, and maybe what parts do you need to focus your instruction on next. So each task has anywhere from 3 to 5 or 6 reflect and reason questions. One of the questions is only some number of visuals are visualized using triangles. What do all those numbers have in common? And then
Mm.
another one, which is exactly where your brain was already going, is some numbers are always visualized with their dots in a circle. What's special about these numbers and why do they need to be displayed as circles only? And you were starting to make that connection that the visuals that were values that were always displayed in a circle are prime numbers
Yes.
because we can't break those into factors.
Right.
So
Beautiful.
we suggest teachers using the reflect and reason questions for whole class conversation or small group conversation into whole class, or even individual written reflection, which would be sort of, another example of that formative assessment.
So from the perspective that I'm coming to this, because I am working directly with teachers in schools, and I see this also as a professional development tool, to professional learning tool. I see
Yeah.
this as giving teachers an opportunity to be like, oh yeah, I never thought to ask that question, or giving them, like I said earlier, the permission. Oh my gosh, fractions. The permission to think, oh, these are important questions to ask to push my students thinking forward, and also just like we've been around the block with what do you notice, what do you wonder, and I think those are really important questions, right? Those are notice and wonder. People wear the Wonder Woman shirts now where I'm the notice woman. Annie Feder was the one who first started that idea, and I love notice and wonder, but I also think that sometimes we need to push a little further, and and that like connecting it directly to that specific problem. So I really love this. I love this. Okay, so now I'm
So
looking at fractions.
when I do teacher training for Struggly, part of the training focuses on how to launch our tasks.
Hmm.
And we do zero in on using a notice and wonder protocol for launching a task.
Yes.
And if you display something like I'm displaying right now and ask students to notice and wonder about this, one, it's a great opportunity for students that are a little bit hesitant or a little maybe have some fear or anxiety around being wrong.
Yes.
There's nothing, you can't notice a wrong thing.
Right.
But then also it drums up ideas of what am
Yes.
I going to do with this task when there's no instructions about what to do. Um,
Love it.
this is not level one. It's pretty complex in what we're looking at. So this is a non-traditional visual representation of working with fractions with uncommon denominators. This task is called slice and dice. On
Mm.
the right-hand side here, I've got a slicing tool.
So cool. Oh my gosh. Okay,
It's
so this is
Go ahead.
amazing. No, so for the listeners who are just not seeing this on YouTube, you have to go to YouTube right now and watch this, because what I'm looking at is like what Tanya was saying was it's a non. Did you say non-traditional? No,
Sure. Yeah, non-traditional.
non-traditional. So like typically when we teach fractions, we're showing students an area model, usually a rectangle, right? Usually or a bar model. This is not a bar model. It's like multiple, I guess, with it
Like overlapping
rhombi.
diamond shapes,
Yeah,
rhombi,
rhombi. Yeah, overlapping
rhombi.
rhombi, right? With and then the slicing tool is showing all the different ways that this can be that the whole, right? Because we're assuming this is one whole that we're looking at, is sliced and diced to show the different denominators. I know I'm doing more talking because you're probably about to explain how this works, but this is amazing.
I loved your explanation. The sort of reason why we developed this task is how is it possible that I can take a fraction that's representing a part of a visual and I can change the denominator to be bigger and bigger, but the whole is not changing, right? The
Right.
whole is staying the same. This is still one whole. But if you notice this fraction over here, this 10 out of 10 is representing the whole. And if I slice it, it will follow what the denominator is doing. So up to 40/40ths.
Right. So it started
But
as 10/10ths, then well, now it's one whole, right?
one
But then it
one.
was right 1/1, and then it was 10/10ths, and then it was 20/20ths, and now 40/40ths. So cool.
And if I think about the different sizes that are shaded in this,
Mm-hmm.
I can see the 4/10ths
Mm-hmm.
that are orange when I'm
Mm-hmm.
sliced in tenths, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not as easy for me to see like the light blue, what
Mm-hmm.
fraction that is. So I'll slice again, and now I can more clearly see, okay, it's nicely highlighted when I'm in 20ths. And it seems like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7/20ths are light blue, and 3/20ths are yellow, and 2/20ths are teal. And now we get to a more complex version of that. Now we're broken down, you can see, to a even larger denominator size or smaller
Yeah.
sections of the whole.
So as you were putting in those numbers, what I was noticing is there's this little slider along the bottom. It's a little smiley face, and they are kind of like moving along as you're putting right. So giving a little bit of feedback to the learner to say,
Right,
okay,
letting you know
you're on your way, right?
you're on your way to the solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And
Can
of
you?
course, this task starts with, you were talking about, most of the time when we visualize fractions is in rectangles.
Mm-hmm.
This task starts with a square. And you're just talking about fractions in a square, and then it becomes more and more complex with this
Okay.
overlapping diamond shape and some other, you work with a trapezoid and whatnot.
Cool.
Um, I'm going to
Could,
show you maybe one more, if that's
can
okay.
yeah? Can you get one wrong on purpose?
Oh, yes, of course, of course. Let me
I
show
want.
you getting something wrong in Cuisenaire Towers.
Ooh.
Again, not level one. So let me show you level one.
Okay.
So you've got your 1 and 2 over there. You see that the goal here is 2, and I've made 0 out of the 2 options. So what we're doing here is we're finding all the ways to build 2.
Nice.
Are you able to hear the audio?
Yeah, it's like bloop. It makes like a little plink.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's go. Now that we're on level 3, so we're finding all the ways to make 4, and I've got 4 Cuisenaire rod sizes: the 4 length, the 3 length, the 2 length, the 1 length. And I know that there must be 5 different ways to
Ah.
compose 4.
Okay, so the system's telling me that I need to make 5 different ways.
Yes,
I have
exactly.
5 different ways to make 4. Okay.
So 4 ones,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And then I could go 2 twos.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's make a mistake. So I'm gonna go 2 and 3.
Okay. Oh, it just kind of like
Just
fell
a fun
off.
little so no shame around making the mistake. So what
No.
happens is I have a 2 Cuisenaire rod and I'm trying to bring in a 3 Cuisenaire rod to make 4, and that's a mistake.
So it just
So
kind of
the
like
extra
falls over.
rod
Yeah.
just kind of falls over, it crumbles, and it gives you the chance to just keep trying. So the feedback that lets you know that you made a mistake is actually an audio feedback, right? There's that crumbling sound. You see also the visual that it fell over. Um, I can also make a duplicate, which is not necessarily a mistake, but it is repeating an answer.
Ah, and so
And
then
I
this.
get again, oh, a repeat. Try building something different this time. You still get credit for your repeat, but you're being notified like, oh, you actually did that one once. And we're trying to
Mm,
find all the different ways to make 4.
nice. I
Eventually that goes all the way up to all the ways to build 10, and of course it becomes very complex, right? You have to be very strategic about how you're organizing your towers, paying attention to not only the magnitude of your rod, but also color can be really helpful in organizing your thinking. So we try to make it so that there are multiple ways for you to engage your strategies when you're solving one of our tasks.
so cool. So cool.
The other thing I wanted, so we've been looking at Struggly tasks, which are called deep understanding tasks,
Uh-huh.
where they're supporting students to dig deep on a concept, a concept. But we also have practice tasks. And one of our most popular ones is called sort it out multiplication. And that's because deep conceptual understanding is, I think, key in success in math. But of course, we know that students need to also have fact fluency. Like
Yeah.
we can't not
Right.
have that. But the way we go about it is really what matters, and that it doesn't need to just be speeded fact retrieval. We can still build students' conceptual understanding, or sorry, students' fact fluency, but stay connected to the concept itself. And that's what our practice tasks are all about. So here's sorted out multiplication. I've got a card deck here and a series of products across the top to sort my deck into.
Nice.
And you'll see that I've got
Mm,
2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I've got 6 different representations of products in this deck.
nice.
I can make a mistake. And again, I get a little mistake message, almost match your card with a product. And then that card just got put back in the deck for me to sort again. Once I get through sorting this deck, I'll get a new set of products and a new deck. And I can always come back to this task and play it.
Mm.
It's never going to repeat. It's always going to be different.
Oh, that's so cool. So again, for listeners who are not seeing this visually, it's 4 cards across the top with 4 different products, 10, 12, 14, and 15. And then on the cards, it's kind of like, to me, it's reminding me of solitaire, where you're putting the cards, I don't know, you're putting them in stacks, basically, right? You're sorting them. And so I see dice, I see 10 frames, I see arrays, I see those circle things that we had on
Visual
other
numbers.
visual numbers, thank you. I see bar models with, yep. So there's multiple representations. And then I just see a traditional, like 4 times 3 = 12, written with the symbolic notation with the numbers. So cool. A repeated addition. Yeah. This is nice. This is really nice.
I'm almost done with this deck, I think.
And then how many are in the deck?
It depends.
Okay.
It's kind of it's written into the programming of
Ah, got it.
how many possible ways of representing those products that are the auto-generated products. Your size of deck is going to depend on that.
And then is there a way? Oh my gosh, I feel like this could be a 4-hour podcast episode right now because there's so many questions I have. Maybe we have another conversation in a couple months because I feel
Yeah.
like this is so like what's the little guy on the upper right hand corner? He's a little yellow square and
Oh,
he has
this
a
is just
magnifying
your
glass.
avatar.
Oh, your avatar. Okay, got it, got
Your
it.
home.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Amazing. All right. So now the question, how does this Struggly, and I think we kind of talked about this a little bit, but like, how does Struggly help students build their confidence in math and specifically like pushing through those tough moments? We've talked about this, but I feel like I just want to flesh it out a little bit more.
So Struggly is helping students with their confidence and their math learning by helping them have or supporting them in having an experience where struggle is part of the process. You're supposed to make mistakes in Struggly. It is just like the game students play outside of school. There's no instructions. You have to explore and figure it out for yourself, and then you get to start progressing through the game. But this time, the game just so happens to be math.
Mm,
So the no instructions, I think at first can be a little bit intimidating, probably more so for the teacher than the students.
yeah.
For teachers, it can be really uncomfortable to say, go send your students to do something where there are no instructions to tell them what to do. But I think when you were talking about Struggly as a powerful um, professional development tool, it really is because it gives students the opportunity to surprise you, to show
Yes.
what they're capable of doing when you don't tell them what to do. And then the interface itself is specifically designed to be highly intrinsically motivating. So we consulted with a woman named Celia Hoden, who is the lead experience designer at the game Fortnite.
Oh, yeah.
And so she helped us understand, how do you build in that intrinsic motivation where the player just wants to keep playing, not for anything other than playing and progressing. And so we've taken those design principles and woven them into the Struggly experience for students. So I think that it's a similar feeling in Struggly, that the challenge, the moments where you kind of are like, oh, I'm frustrated, it it is more aligned with that feeling that you get when you play a game that's frustrating, and not aligned with that feeling where you have a worksheet of a bunch of practice problems in front of you and you're frustrated. It's a different kind of frustration.
Yeah.
So because we don't want students to not be challenged, right?
Right.
That's not how we get them into a better relationship with math. It's we show them that challenge is something that they're capable of overcoming
Ugh.
when they can use their own thinking and reasoning and exploration.
And isn't this such an amazing metaphor for life?
Yes.
Right? I mean, that to
Totally.
me, on a personal level, that is why I do what I do, right? It's that if you don't learn how to struggle when you're a child, uh, then, or if everything's made so comfortable for you that there's no opportunity to struggle, and that everything's over scaffolded, and I'm not talking about just in math class. I'm talking about literally putting,
Life.
bubble wrap around our kids these days, right? And it's like the ones who come out on top, I feel like, are the ones who have opportunity to fall down and get themselves back up and say, look, that was hard, and look at what I did. And that to me is what I'm seeing on this app.
Right. It's that confidence that you gain from figuring out something for yourself. I was trying to explain this to someone, and I was talking about, think about the difference of, you learned how to do something because someone showed you the set of steps and then you did it again. Like, maybe it's a recipe. Like my mom showed me how to cook my grandmother's lasagna. It's like, okay, she was kind of, you know, over my shoulder making sure I was doing the steps correctly, but she showed me the steps and I did them with my hands, but it wasn't really me making that recipe, right?
Right.
And then the difference between, you are trying to make lasagna and you've made it so many different times and you're adjusting different parts each time, but the ownership that you feel over that recipe when you troubleshooted and you are the one that put in the work
Yeah.
to become the expert at
Yeah.
that thing,
Yeah.
you own that knowledge in a way that just feels so much different than when it was handed to you.
100%. 100%. And I think that's why I do. I think that's probably why you do what you do, but that is for sure why I do what I do. And I used to say to my students, especially those eighth graders who really were written off, I used to say to them, I am not here. And this is before I said, I'm not here to collect a paycheck. That's not, I mean, that's a nice part of it. Every 2 weeks, I do get paid to do this thing that I love to do. But it was more like, I'm doing this job so that you can believe in yourselves. But the only way I can do that work is by giving you problems that are really hard, and or giving you problems. And I used to call them, it was, I think it might have been before I read the low floor, high ceiling. It was more, I used to call them multiple entry points, right? These problems have entry points where every single one of you can do something to get started, because these students literally were like, why is she not telling us step by step? Why? I don't like, I want to be told, I want to be told step by step, because that's what I have been taught math is. And I was like, we're changing the narrative on this whole thing.
And
And
I really struggled with that because my students were like, I thought you cared about me. Why won't you show me how to do it? If you
yes,
say that you care about me,
yes,
why won't you tell me how to do it? And
yeah,
that for me was really emotional at first,
yeah,
of getting over, I'm actually not telling you because I care about you. I want
yeah,
you to figure it out for yourself because this is actually the more fruitful experience for you as a learner. And so I'm not telling you because I care about you.
yeah,
That was something that took me probably a year to get comfortable with,
yeah,
because my relationship with my students was so important to me
yeah.
that when they kind of came up against feeling like I was not giving them what they needed, it took some repositioning of what is learning,
Mm.
for them to then come back and say, "Oh, I get what you were doing." I had one student come back. He went away to college. We had a moment in class where he was really frustrated with me for not telling him, and then he came back the year later, and he was in his first year of college, and he was like, "I just want to say." I get what you were doing now, and I'm really glad that you did it, but I didn't like it then. And I was like, perfect. I love that. That's all I needed to hear.
Totally. Isn't that amazing though and it's like, and I think this is such an important message for teachers. So I think this is where I actually feel like this is a perfect place to wrap up. Because like, what would you say to a teacher, right? Or what would you say to yourself as a young teacher, like but or early career teacher when you first started teaching, or a new teacher now, that when they come up against an instance like that, an example like that, you said like your students were like, oh, you say you love us, you say you care about us, but you're not giving us what we need. What would you say to a teacher that just feels like I can't go one more day, is discouraged?
I would say to start with something small.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to what I was talking about of we can't just talk the talk of growth mindset. You have to walk the walk as well and allow students moments where they can experience the message that you're trying to send to them. So if it's I'm not telling you what to do and it's because I love you, it's because I want you to be able to learn this for yourself. Doing something small where students can actually experience that productive struggle, pushing through it, and finding success. I think you gotta show students that you're gonna deliver on that promise.
Ah,
And I think that struggly tasks are something that can definitely do that, and that it takes maybe you could sit down for 20 minutes and engage in this game that is going to be feel real frustrating at first. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but you will find success and you're going to earn badges. You're going to be celebrated for your thinking. So I think that would be my first piece of advice. And my second piece of advice is something that was told to me as an early career teacher that just gave me a lot of um, I don't know if perspective, or just gave me the right level of expectation for myself as a teacher. I think as educators, we want our classrooms to be 100% the ideal classroom every day. And as an early career teacher, that's not a reasonable expectation for yourself. And
yeah.
instead, to be aiming to change 10% of your practice a year. Someone said 10%, that's the goal. And
Wow.
I thought, wow, 10%, that's something I could definitely do. And when I measure myself by that goal, I can find some success for myself. And that was really powerful to me is don't expect your classroom to be that ideal pedagogical space that you learned in your methods course. It can be that, but it's going to take, shifting 10% at a time, not trying to change your whole practice to be perfect tomorrow.
Amazing. Chills. I love it. Okay. So, Tanya, where can people find you? Where can people find Struggly? And I will put all of this in the show notes. You don't have to give me exact
Sure.
handles and stuff, but just where you're hanging out.
I'm hanging out on Instagram. So struggly_maths is the Instagram handle. I do know that one. I'm also on LinkedIn,
Okay.
Tanya LaMar, and email is super easy.
Okay.
Or you can go to our website, struggly.com.
Love it. Thank you
Thank you so
so
much
much.
for having me. This is very fun. I don't
This
want to
is,
stop.
I know. This is so fun. Well, thank you so much. And you know what? We'll have another conversation soon.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.